In this video, we're going to show you an example where we start with a new part and we create the vector data that we're going to cut using the design tools in the software. Here we've just got some simple rectangles and some text that we're going to create. Then we're going to check our material setup and calculate a pocket toolpath to cut away the area between the inner border and the text, and a profile toolpath in order to cut the part out. Finally, we'll show you how to preview this to check that everything looks correct and create an image like you can see on the screen here. And once you're happy with that, how to actually save that file in a format that your CNC will understand. Let's start with a new copy of the software. Let's start by clicking on the icon to create a new file. And the work area for this particular job is going to be 7.5 inches in X, or 7.5 inches wide, 3 inches high, or 3 inches in Y if you want to think of it that way. Material Z0 is going to be on the top of the block, and the thickness of our material is 1/4 of an inch, or 0.25. Now we're going to work with the datum in the centre of the job, at least for the design stage of this. So XY0 currently is set to the centre, as you can see here and in the 2D view, and as I mentioned, we're working in inches. Let's go ahead and hit the OK button, and that'll take us into the main interface of the software. The first shape that I want to draw is going to be a rectangle, so I'm going to click on the icon here under Create Vectors to draw rectangle. I'm going to set the anchor point of the shape to be in the centre at X0, Y0, which, as we've just set up, is the middle of our job. I'm going to do radius to external corners, so I would like there to be a round shape on the corners there, or a fillet, which is another word often used in CAD drawing software. And the radius for that is going to be 0.15 of an inch. Size of my rectangle is going to be 6.8 by 2.4, and I'm going to hit the Create button so we can see there's our rectangle with the rounded corners. Now I want to create another rectangle, this time that has internal or an external radius of 0.05 of an inch on the corners, and the size of this is going to be 6.5 by 2.1, and hit Create and close there. So now we've created two rectangles that represent the border of our nameplate. Now we can create our text, so we'll click on the icon to draw text, and in here I want to type the text Avalon, which is the name of our model train engine that we're making this nameplate for. The font I'm going to use is going to be a true type font, so make sure that's checked. I'm going to click the down arrow and I'm going to hit A on the keyboard to go up to the fonts beginning with A. And from there I'm going to choose Arial or Arial. I'm not sure of the pronunciation there, but you should be able to find that on your PC. It's a pretty standard font. Not going to check bold or italic. Text alignment is going to be in the center. Text height is going to be 1.3 inches. Anchor X0, Y0, and we'll hit Apply and Close. Now you can see that's positioned the bottom of the text in the center, which is what we told it to do there, but I would like that to be located in the middle of my part. So with that vector text selected, I'm going to click on the icon here to align selected vector. I'm going to choose the option at the top here, which will align that both centrally, horizontally and vertically within the part, and come down and hit Close. And that simple set of vectors is all we need for our design, and we're ready at this stage to start calculating the toolpaths to cut it. So we can come up to the icon here under 2D View Control, switch to Toolpaths tab, and when we click on that it will minimize the Drawing tab on the left and open the Toolpath tab on the right and fix it in place. The first thing we want to do before we calculate any toolpaths is to double check our material setup. If we click on the Set button here, we can come in and confirm the values that we entered before. So Z0, top of the block, thickness of material 1/4 of an inch. My XY0 is currently set for the middle of the job, and I could certainly proceed in that way and just make sure that that's where I indicated to the CNC machine that XY0 would be. Or if I prefer, I could change that at this stage before we calculate a toolpath. So I'm going to choose the lower left corner option, and now when I set up the job on the CNC I can just tell it that XY0 is in the lower left corner here. The rapid gaps and the home position need to be set to appropriate values so that when the tool lifts out the material to move to a new position, it'll clear any clamping that you have in place. So these values need to be high enough to get above whatever your hold down method is, and the home position is just the position the tool is going to start or move to before it starts cutting a toolpath. Once I'm OK with everything in there, we can click on the OK button, and now we're ready to choose the type of toolpath we want to use to machine the job. In this case, we're going to have a couple of different toolpaths. What I want to do is first machine away the material in between this vector and the text. So I need to select all the vectors involved in this cutting operation. To do that, I'm going to select this vector by clicking on it, hold the Shift button down on the keyboard and click and select the text. The text is just a single entity at this stage, so I only need to click on that once in order to select all of it. So this should appear as a solid purple line, the rectangle should appear as a dashed purple line, and now I've got my vectors selected and I'm ready to choose the type of toolpath that I'd like to use to cut them. In this case, I want to machine in between these down to a given depth to pocket out that area.
All right, welcome to part 2 of our Avalon sign video series on the Shop Saber CNC router. I've lost my accent for this video. No, just kidding. I wanted to redo the second part of the video just to kind of tweak some of the settings that were in the original video and make sure that it's, going to work for what we're doing here at Platteville High School. All right. So what we'll need to do to cut a pocket out around the letters, I changed Avalon to my daughter's name of Adeline. And you're welcome to have whatever text you want to. We don't need a bunch of Avalon signs. So holding the Shift key down, I can select the inside border and the text for the sign. Having both of those items selected, now coming over to our toolpath window on the right, okay, I want to select Pocket Toolpath. Okay. So once we get into the Pocket Toolpath, we do not need the advanced toolpath option, so I can uncheck that box. All right, and that kind of reduces, our options over here. But for what we're doing, that's perfectly fine. So our start depth of 0 is basically just saying it's going to start on the top of our workpiece, and our cut depth will be how far down we cut this pocket out. Okay, and 75 thousandths of an inch is a decent depth when we're dealing with 1/4 inch material, but I think we could go to 0.1 on our cut depth. And our next window we want to look at is our tool. Okay, our tool window right here, and we have already an 1/8 inch end mill selected. Okay. If it's not showing up as an 1/8 inch end mill, hit the select button, and then our tool database opens up, and we can now go in and find the end mill that we're looking for. And in this case, our 1/8 inch end mill is located right here. Over here to the right side of our window now is just a little bit of information and cut settings for that particular tool. And we really won't change much with any of these settings. Okay, if we were to do anything, I would say to come down here to our spindle speed. And I think if we ran this at 10,000 RPM, that we'd be in good shape. And I'm happy with our feed rate of 50 inches a minute and our plunge rate of 20 inches a minute. Okay, so we can hit apply. Those settings are now saved with our 1/8 inch end mill, and click OK. All right. For the name of this toolpath, okay, right now it by default named it Pocket 1. Okay, I would like to change that. And I would really like students to add their name to this. Okay, so we'll put name Pocket. Okay, don't type name, type your name. Okay, Mr. Wigman Pocket. Okay, Joe Pocket, Troy's Pocket. Okay, put your name in there so that when we have a class go through this project, we've got names tagged with these toolpaths, so it'll just make it a lot easier to make sure we're choosing the proper toolpath and everything like that. Okay, if we hit calculate, okay, that is kind of giving you a preview of what that cutout is going to look like. Okay, so we can hit the play button and it will kind of very quickly, you know, go through and show us a preview of what that cutout is going to look like. Okay, if we wanted to go through a single step process, we'd be able to do that right here. We can slow that speed down and hit the reset preview. And now you can see in a little bit slower speed, all of the tool paths that our 1/8 inch end mill is going to go through as it cuts out around our text, but also around that border that we drew earlier in the design. Okay, so the slow motion view is a little bit better. Gives you time to kind of check out, you know, all of the paths that 1/8 inch end mill is going to travel as it carves out and cuts the design. Okay, now looking at this, I think everything looks pretty good. The detail within each of our letters, we're not missing anything, or we don't have an area where that 1/8 inch tool was not able to access or get into, you know, any tight spaces, and leave a little extra material where we would want the material removed. So things are looking good. Okay, the last step that we want to complete here is to save this tool path. Okay, so to be able to do that, I want to close out of our preview window. Okay, and that brings us back to our toolpath window, and our save toolpath icon is right here. So again, I want to click on that. Okay, so now we're in our save toolpath options. All right. Machines like this CNC router and a lot of CNC machines, they go through something called a post processor. Okay, and that post processor is basically taking your design and the tool path that you create for it and applying that tool path and design to meet the specifications of whatever machine this design is going to be ran on. Okay, so for us, we have a Shop Saber CNC router. So in our drop down menu, I need to scroll down alphabetically, okay, until we get down here to our Shop Saber options, and you can see, you know, there are several of them. Okay, we've got arcs, we've got metric, we've got a plasma cutter, and everything else. ATC is automatic tool change. We did not upgrade to an automatic tool changer machine. So the Shop Saber that we want to use for our post-processing is the top one listed, Shop Saber Inch. Okay. So when we click on that from that drop-down menu, that should be what shows up right here. So just double check that that is, you know, where it showed up. Okay. So we are now ready. We're now ready to make sure that name pocket has a check mark in it. Shop Saber Inch is our post processor, and then we can hit Save Toolpath. Now, when we do that, since we renamed it earlier, the name is still there, and the Save As type again should be Shop Saber Inch. So everything looks good. Right now it's saving in the download folder. That's fine, I guess. We could save on the desktop as well. We could probably even create a new folder, and the new folder we could call 7th Hour PG 2021. Okay, so I would say let's save things in that folder. Okay, or if you need to create a folder, you could do that as well. All right, so name pocket, and we will hit save. Okay, so that is the toolpath for the pocket. There will be another video coming which will explain the profile toolpath that we are going to use to cut the larger border that we put in our design earlier. So that video will be coming up to explain how we want to create that toolpath and save that toolpath so that we have two different toolpaths to run on the Shop Saber CNC router to create our sign. Okay. All right. Good luck and stay tuned for video number 3.
Now the main thing for me at this point is just to check that I've got the level of detail that I'm looking for with the size of tool that I've chosen, and that it can fit into all the gaps that I have between my letters. So at this stage I'm really pleased with the way that looks, and I'm ready to continue to calculate the next toolpath which will cut the part out. To do that I'm going to close the preview toolpaths form, and I need to come over into the 2D view. So I'm going to come over and click here where it says new, which will take us back into the 2D view. I can just click in the background to deselect the vectors we currently have selected, and then click on the outer rectangle to select that. That's the vector that I need to cut out in order to cut out the part. Now we can come back over to the Toolpaths tab, and this time I don't want to pocket that, I want to profile around it in order to machine out the shape of our rectangle. So let's click on the icon there. For this toolpath we're going to start at the surface of the material again, so start depth 0, cut depth needs to be the thickness of the block. Now I can either enter that numerical value, or a nice shortcut way to remember it is to type Z and then hit equals on the keyboard, and when we hit the equals sign the software will reference the Z value, which is the thickness of our block. So it's just picked that value up and entered it for me, 1/4 of an inch, as you can see there. Next we can select our tool from the tool database. I'm going to choose the 1/8 end mill. This time I'm just going to take the default settings for that, so we don't need to edit it. I want to cut outside of the selected vector here, so make sure that option is checked. Choose the appropriate direction for our material and the tooling. Next we've got the option again to ramp in if we want, so I'll check that option there. And also here we have the option to add tabs to the toolpath. What the tabs do is leave little pieces of material holding the part so it's still connected to the original block, and that just stops the part moving as we cut it out. If we have another hold down method where the part we're cutting is taped down, or we have a vacuum or something like that, then we may not need to use the tabs. In this case we'll imagine that we do have to leave the part connected to the original stock, so I'm going to check the box to add tabs to toolpath. We'll add tabs in this case that are 0.15 of an inch in length, and the thickness for these will just make 0.08. Now I'm going to give this a toolpath name which is appropriate to my naming convention, and I can hit the calculate button. We'll see there that the software's warned me that I've told it to add tabs to the toolpath, but I haven't actually told it where these tabs are going to be. So that's given me a warning. Now I can hit OK, And at this stage I could go ahead and preview that, but it's already told me that I haven't added those tabs. So if we just close that, and with that toolpath selected I click on the icon here to edit it, we can come back in, click on the edit tabs button, and now it opens the toolpath tabs form, and in this case I'm just going to do a constant number 4 and click on the add tabs button, and you can see where it's positioned those in the job. Now it may be they're not exactly where I want them to be, so I can just click in order to move them around to a new position. I can also just click on any one of these and let go in order to delete it. It's possible to click anywhere to add a new tab as well. Once I like the position of those, I'm going to hit close. Now we can hit the calculate button again. This time we don't get any warnings because we've told it we're going to add tabs, and we've actually gone ahead and told the software the position or the location of where they're going to be added. Again, we can see the toolpath drawn in the 3D view, but we also have the option now to preview this. So with that selected, I can click preview selected toolpath. There we're seeing that machine around there, and you can see in the gaps tabs at the position where I asked the software to add them. So this is how the part's going to be held in place as it's cut out. Once finished, I'd need to take the material off and manually remove those. Once the preview is complete, if you don't see anything that you need to change, then you're ready to save the toolpath in a format that your CNC will understand. If you do see something that isn't right, then at this stage you should go back and make the appropriate changes, either to your vectors or to the toolpath settings or the tooling that you've chosen to cut it. Here I like the way this looks, so I'm going to close the preview.
Welcome back to the final video showing how to use VCarve to create the tool paths for our sign. Okay. So as we go through this, we wrap up by cutting our profile tool path out, and you can see the preview of that right here. I've got tabs positioned on the straightaways. I don't like having tabs positioned on corners. I like having our tabs positioned on a straightaway, part of our block. Just makes for cleaning that up a lot easier. Okay. So what we can do, I'm going to reset our preview, and then we will slow the speed down a little bit, and we will preview all tool paths. Once again, just to kind of make sure that everything is going to turn out the way we would like it to, and that we didn't miss anything. Okay. So we now see what our completed sign would look like after it runs on the ShopBot CNC router. I'm sorry, the Shop Saber CNC router. Okay, what we can do to save our tool paths, we've got two separate tool paths. Okay, one that is a pocket and the other one is the profile. The profile, remember, is the one that goes around the outside border and actually cuts our sign out of the larger piece of material. Since we are using the same tool for both of these, we can actually save this tool path together, and the machine will run both tool paths one after another. Okay, obviously the first tool path that it's going to run is going to be carving or hollowing out around the letters in the sign, and the second tool path will be the profile, where it cuts our sign out from the larger piece of wood. Okay, so that will save us some time. But before we get to that, there's a couple things I would like to go back and edit. And the reason for that edit is simply because I want the signs to be a little bit thicker than what we originally made them. Okay. So what I'd like to do is close out of that, come back here, get our drawing window open. And then we're going to set our job dimensions and origin again. And really all I want to do here is change our material thickness. We're going to bump that up to 0.375 inches. And that is 3/8 of an inch. So we're going to go from a 1/4 inch thickness up to a 3/8 inch thick block of wood that we're going to cut this out. Okay, so once we do that, we can just simply click OK. All right, and now coming back to our two tool paths, the pocket tool path, we really don't need to modify anything with that. Okay. The profile where we're cutting our material out, that tool path we do need to edit, because if you remember, our cut depth was set to 0.25. So we need to change that to be 0.375. Okay. So once we are able to do that, we can come back down. We don't have anything else to change. All the other settings are fine where they are. And we just would need to hit calculate. Then if I just want to verify that my profile toolpath is going to cut through the material, we can just hit the preview visible toolpaths option, and that will just go around and show me that it will in fact cut through the material and leave our 4 tabs. Okay, that change, I've been working on this for a couple days now, and I went out to Menards and I looked at their 1/4 inch boards, and they seem to be a little thin and borderline flimsy. So I think making the change up to a 3/8 inch thick board is going to give you a better sign, a better finished product in the end. Okay, so we've done that. Okay, and everything looks good. So now we can go back to actually saving the tool paths together. So I'll check both of those boxes next to the toolpath name, click on close. Now from this menu option, I want to click on the save toolpath icon right here. Okay, and it says right here, toolpaths to be saved, the pocket and the profile. Okay, and then like I showed in the other video for our pocket toolpath, the post processor we need to make sure is set to Shop Saber inch. Okay, Shop Saber inch is the post processor. We need to make sure we have selected out of that long list, and it is. I will now hit save toolpath, and this one I will save with my last name, and I'll maybe just name it total, okay, or something like that. So I know it's not just going to cut out the pocket, like the toolpath that I saved in the previous video, but this one will have both toolpaths saved in it. Okay, pay attention to the folder that this file gets saved in. For students, we may need you to save this onto a flash drive. Okay, so you would come over here and select the flash drive USB device over here on the left menu, save it in there. We'll hopefully the first group that goes through the project, we'll have them create a 7th hour production graphics 2021 folder that we can save all of these toolpath files in. So we'll more than likely have you saved to a USB thumb drive. So make sure that's what you're selecting over here on the left. We will create this 7th hour folder that you can save your toolpath files in. Hit save, and that has the toolpath saved. Now I did make a change to my actual drawing file. So I do want to come up and save that. Okay, the toolpath does not save the drawing. Okay, the drawing file is separate from the toolpath. So Make sure that you are always saving the drawing and not just coming in here and saving the toolpath. If you make any changes to the drawing, make sure you save those. Okay, next step is going to be loading our material on the Shop Saber CNC router and positioning the tool to the front left corner right here and setting up the machine to carve and cut out your sign. Okay, thanks for watching. Good luck.